Hey Glenn, you know I love to pretend that you've been watching over me since God knows when. Just like you, I fell under somebody's spell. She filled this hopeless and empty shell, released my heart from this dark, lonely cell I lived in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Jakko Jakszyk, perhaps most recently known as lead singer and second guitarist in King Crimson, is proud to announce his new solo album, Son of Glen, set for release on June 27th. The record is a companion piece of sorts to his acclaimed memoir, Who's the Boy with the Lovely Hair, that was released in October of 2024 and explores many of the themes and the subjects that the book touches upon. To coincide with this announcement, you can now hear the stunning 10-minute long title track on YouTube. Son of Glen will be available as a limited CD Digipak, Gatefold LP, and as digital album. Please welcome singer, songwriter, musician, record producer, actor, best known as the member of prog rock legends King Crimson, Jakko Jakszyk, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Jakko.
Hello, nice to see you.
Good to see you too, man. You are part of a list of King Crimson alumni that I've had on my show now. I've had Greg Lake, Ian McDonald, David Cross, Adrian Ballou, Tony Levin, and now you.
Wow. Well, I'm pleased to be listed along all those other amazing musicians.
You are a wonderful singer, and I'm going to make some comments. Some people have already told this said about this new album that it's one of the best you've done, and I agree. Here's my review. Okay, Son of Glen by Jakko Jakszyk is a musical and lyrical masterpiece. Every track resonates deep into your inner being. The album has Grammy consideration written all over it. It's a rare gem for any genre in today's music scene, and they gave it 5 stars.
Wow, fantastic! Thank you very much.
It's an incredible album. It really is. I love it, and it's going to appeal to everybody.
Well, that would be good.
I want to touch on some of the songs on it.
Sure.
You did. Is it Ballina? Is that how you say it? Ode to Ballina?
Ballina.
Ballina. Okay,
Yeah.
what is Ballina?
It's a town in Ireland in County Mayo. And
Oh, okay.
And as you will know if you read the book or followed any of the stuff about
Mhm.
both the album and the book, I was adopted as a child, and
Right.
I found my real mother in the 1980s, and she was originally from Ballina in County Mayo in Southern Ireland, and was the lead singer in a popular Irish show band.
Oh, wow. So it's in the blood.
Well, yeah, it would appear to be. Yeah.
And also your dad. Talk about your dad a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I only discovered him literally 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Having not known who he was, I was adopted by a Polish emigre who had the most extraordinary Second World War
Mhm.
story, and his lovely French wife Camille. But that was a difficult upbringing, and I always wondered who my real father was. But I only discovered him a few years ago, and it turned out he was an American U.S. airman based in England.
Oh,
One of
wow.
one
Did
of the
you guys
stations.
did you guys meet face to face or no?
No, when I discovered him, I also discovered that he died aged 36 in 1973.
Oh,
So
wow.
I could never have met him.
Did he die in the war or anything or
No, he died
no?
of cancer. He died of cancer. He'd
Right.
he fought in Korea and was stationed in England in the 50s. Went back to Missouri, which is where he's from,
Hmm.
uh, and died in 73.
Did you have pictures of him? Is there any resemblance or?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of pictures of him in the video for
Right.
Son of Glen.
I did see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and with the magic of AI, he's actually lip syncing part of the song that's about him at the end of the video. So yeah, we clearly look like each other. In fact,
Hmm.
he's a dead ringer for my son. They look very similar.
That's an interesting story. It really is. That'd be good for a documentary, you know?
Yeah, there's enough
Yeah.
material in there for several documentaries, I
I
think.
think you're right. Well, you do this track twice, okay? And they're very different. You did the reprise. The reprise to me sounded a little Jeff Beck, and from something like from Blow by Blow, which I love.
Okay. Well, basically I wrote it as it's an Irish thing, it's me
Right.
reclaiming my Irish rights, I guess. So I wrote it for low whistle, which I play, and cello, and then thinking of it as two sides of vinyl, I thought I would open the second side with a different version of the same tune. So that's in a more electric thing where I instead of the low whistle, I'm playing the melody on lead guitar instead.
I love both versions. I like the reprise a little better, and I only wish that it was a little longer.
Yeah, it's just well, it's like a little interlude. It's like a little intro to the kind of it's like a starter before the main course, I guess.
Right. Oh, it's a great tune, man. The whole album is incredible. Um, Somewhere between then and now, which has an acoustic opening. This song could be taken over by a lot of bands could use this as a cover song, and it could also cross over into country. You know,
Oh, blimey, I don't know
I,
about that.
yeah,
Okay.
I could hear that. This song was written after the funeral of a friend, right, who died very young.
Yeah, yeah, and it's about what you dream is going to happen when you're a kid,
Hmm.
uh, and then the harsh reality of growing up and adulthood. I've always thought that one of the most ironic things is education. We educate our kids for a world that won't exist by the time they get there.
Yeah,
Everything you learn is about what's happening currently, and of course, by the time you leave school, due to technology and the world moving on, that it's a very different world out there. So yeah, and it's about growing up in England and dreams and reality. It doesn't actually apply to me so much in that my childhood dreams actually became real. So it's more about, as I say, it was inspired by a friend who died young. So
it's a very heartfelt album. Is that hard to do because it brings up so many emotional feelings? I would,
yeah, no, it is. I mean, these things are, on one level they're rather self-indulgent. I think I've said this before, but I was talking to Steve Wilson about this, and
right.
Steve Wilson had a very warm, happy upbringing and
Hmm.
childhood, and he said, I can't write songs like you do,
Hmm.
as a result of that, and he claimed that's why he writes songs about serial killers. So uh,
I guess that's easy to do,
I mean, it is. It's a cliche about writing about what you know and what you've experienced, and hoping it touches others on a similar level, if that's feasible. But yeah, I mean, more than any other record, I've written this about my life and my experience and specific experiences, and that's why it's related to the book. And I think that's an interesting thing too. Writing about a specific incident in the book
Hmm.
and then hearing the song that I wrote at the time, because I did it the other way around. Sometimes
Yeah.
I did it the other way around.
That's a great idea. I wrote a book about growing up in the family business, so, and I have my family in there, but I'm not a songwriter.
No,
I'm just a writer, but I'm not a songwriter. I'll leave that to you guys. The next track, "How Did I Let You Get So Old," that's a very interesting track and title. I guess it's about your adoptive Polish father.
Yeah, I had a very difficult relationship with him.
Oh,
He was very strict.
right.
We lived in quite an austere household. There was no family. My dad's family were either behind the Iron Curtain and so we never saw them. And my mum had a similar background. My mum was abandoned by her mother as a child. So growing up, it was just the three of us. There weren't any kind of family get-togethers. All of the things that I used to see on TV about, Christmas and things like that never existed. And so I had a very difficult relationship with him. He was, I got beaten, I got leather strapped,
Oh man, that's
and,
horrible.
and then later on in life, in fact, when my adopted mother died,
Hmm.
he changed almost overnight into this rather sweet old man. And in doing some of these projects, part of the genesis of the book was a thing I did for the BBC,
Hmm.
where I flew my father back to Poland, and so we had all these amazing long conversations, and I've got hours of conversations with him telling me some of the terrible things that he experienced and saw during the war that growing up I didn't know about. So I
Sure.
had no context for his behavior and his anger,
Yeah.
and his post-traumatic disorder, I guess. So the song on the album is about finally getting to know him, and it's that thing of it. This happened in the last 5 to 10 years of his life, which is why the song is called "How Did I Let You
Hmm.
Guess."
And
Um,
you
and I'm
wanted to
very,
be a footballer, right? And then you got into
yeah.
music, and I guess he didn't think that was a real job, right?
Well, neither at the time, neither of them seemed, to anybody with any kind of sense.
Hmm.
Neither of my ambitions seemed likely. Both seemed equally as deluded. In fact, if anything, this idea that I would become a musician of the caliber good enough to play in a band even approximately like King Crimson seemed infinitely more unlikely than
Hmm.
me becoming a professional footballer.
Right.
I guess they were both viewed as delusional by my adult by the adults in my life and my teachers, but at least there was a kind of element of chance about the football thing. But I failed my trial for the youth team of my local team here, and
Hmm.
so that kind of ended it. So I went with kind of music instead, a bit of acting, but
Have you ever what position did you play, by the way?
kind of an inside forward, kind of a midfielder,
Right.
attack, attacking midfielder. Yeah.
Yeah, my son was a goalie. He always wanted to play goalie. That's a
All right.
hard position as a
Yeah, I didn't
hockey
want to play
player.
goal. Not good for the fingers.
Yeah. Who's your favorite team?
Well, I shouldn't really support two teams, but I support two teams. I support Arsenal
Yep.
because that's the nearest team to where I was born. I was born in North London,
Yeah.
and Arsenal are the nearest team. But I also support Watford because I was brought up in and around Watford. So I support both teams. And for most of my life, they were rarely in the same division, so it wasn't an issue. But occasionally Watford have gone up to the top division, so my loyalties were split. But
Yeah. I followed Arsenal for a long time. I
yeah,
always thought they were an explosive team, you know.
yeah. They play beautiful football.
Yeah.
But
There's a lot of rock stars that are footballers. Have you played with other rock stars in the past?
playing football, well, when I was signed to Stiff Records in the 80s,
Hmm.
I played for the Stiff side, and that had, and there was a number of people we played against and people
Hmm.
that played for the Stiff. So there was the bass player in Madness, Mark Bedford. He used to play,
Right.
um, and there was a couple of guys from a band called Tempole Tudor. But I remember we played against Paul Cook, who was the drummer in the Sex Pistols.
Oh,
He was a,
wow.
he was a very aggressive, dirty player.
That
Not
figures.
surprisingly, Yar Wobble, I seem to remember played, and who else? Gary Tibbs, he was the bass player in the Vibrators, and then he was in Adam and the Ants, and eventually played for Roxy Music. So,
Huh.
so I haven't worked with them as musicians, but I've played against them in a football match.
Yeah, I talked to Candace Knight, Richie
Oh, yeah.
Blackmore's. That's how he met. That's how she met Richie. She was working for a radio station, and they were playing soccer. I think against Deep
Oh,
Purple. Yeah,
wow. Well, there
yeah.
you go.
And I remember Rod Stewart. He was a
Yeah,
big
he was.
footballer as well.
Yeah, he's still a big football fan. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Two of my favorite songs on this album. One is "This Kiss Never Lies." What a beautiful song, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a love song for Louise
Hmm.
that I wrote. Yeah.
You said it was a mirror image of your father's relationship, right, with her.
Uh, yeah, the reason I exist is that my USM and father was stationed in England, and he met a dark-haired Irish singer who he fell in love
Hmm.
with, uh, and clearly I'd done the same, and that was the we had a conversation one evening where Louise pointed that out. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I just hadn't crossed my mind, and that's really what started the album. That that became the title track, "Son of Glen." This idea, this romanticized idea of us experiencing something similar, and the idea that he might be looking, even though he died all those years ago, maybe he was somehow looking after me from afar and guiding me.
Hmm.
So that's really where the album started as a result of that conversation with Louise.
The next track, I told you so. If top 40 music was only like it used to be when I was a DJ back in the late 70s. Um, I told you so would have been a hit. It's got
Wow.
everything. It's got a cool bass. It's got the R&B type flavor to it. Got a great beat and rhythm. I'm telling you, to
Oh,
me,
lovely.
I picked this one as the hit.
Well, it's a different world out there now, sadly. So,
Sadly, yeah.
unless somebody picks it up and puts it in a movie, I think it's highly unlikely to get that kind of broader appeal, sadly. But thank
I could hear your music in soundtracks, definitely.
yeah. Well, yeah,
You know,
it's all down to somebody to pick them.
yeah, yep. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I've tried to get a lot of my stuff. I've written a comedy sitcom, 3 books. Um, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
You got to know somebody or be a relative.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the song's about confronting and understanding childhood trauma, and it doesn't not necessarily make the innate feeling those events created disappear, which is very interesting.
Yeah, when I finished the book, you live with these things, and you're
Hmm.
aware that these things that happen to you have an effect in adulthood. But it's only when you see it all written down
Right.
and you've concentrated on it that you start to see these patterns and issues. And I when I finished the book, I started having post-adoptive counselling, and
Really? Huh.
yeah, all those years later, and so that brings a lot of stuff up. So that song is kind of about that, and I guess it's also about how you can do all that examination and self-reflection, and you can see where innate feelings and patterns of behavior, you can see where they come from, but it doesn't necessarily make them go away. You just understand why they're there. I think
Yeah, exactly.
that's my experience anyway.
It's
So
almost like PTSD, isn't it? You know?
yeah, I guess it is, and I think that I say so in the book that the rather generalized approach or attitude in the 50s and 60s to adoption was, well, it's got to be better than putting them in a home,
Yeah.
um, and I think over the years they've now done all sorts of studies, and they recognise that the damage that the mere act of adoption can create,
Hmm.
and then you're constantly dealing with that, and you're dealing with place, time and place, and nurture and nature, and because I could have Uh, I could have been maybe my dad, you know, had he known I existed, maybe he would have taken me and I'd have been brought up in Missouri. And you think, well, who would I have become? You know, how much of is innately me, the person I recognize as myself now, and how much is down to where you're brought up. You know, who would I be if I'd been brought up in Madison County in Missouri?
Right.
And my father died at the age of 14. I don't, you know, you don't know. It's an imponderable, isn't it? So,
Huh.
so it's, yeah, it's about those kind of questions, really.
So your real father was never notified that.
Not as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I have I've been connected to my dad had 3 other kids, so
Okay.
I've spoken to my half sister who's been very generous with her time. In fact, I had a Zoom call with my father's widow as well, which was amazing. So
That is
um,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and that it was his widow that said, you know, had he known, we would have looked after you. Now, you know, that may or may not be true, and it's a rather sweet thing to say.
Yeah.
But you know, who knows what that would have meant, and you know, I almost certainly wouldn't have been in King Crimson. I can pretty
That's
much
true.
count.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You know, I kind of had those same types of feelings later in life because my dad, I loved my dad and he was a great person, but he was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And once he started one drink, I couldn't talk to him. And going through the teenage years, and I could never sit and have a nice conversation with him,
Mm.
you know. And so those feelings came up later in life as well,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the next title, which is really cool. Get a proper job.
Oh yeah, well that's from I did a one-man show in Edinburgh,
Right.
and it's me interacting with this extraordinary animation created by a fantastic Iranian animator called Sam Chigini,
Hmm.
who lives and works in Tehran. Um, and there's part of my story where I talk about, you know, my dad kicked me out of the house age 16, unless I got a proper job, you know,
Right,
and
right.
by which time I was obsessed with all this music. So the music is reflective of the music I was listening to at the time.
But did he build you a guitar when
He did, yeah.
he did?
He was a carpenter, and that was the only way he could express any kind of emotional response to anything. He made me my first electric guitar, you know, which
Huh.
and I drew it on a piece of paper, and I drew lines with measurements on.
Hmm.
And what I was trying to get him to make me was a flying V,
Right.
but he took the line at the bottom to be the shape of the guitar. So it was a triangle. It was a solid triangle.
Hmm. That's
It
interesting.
looked like a heavy metal balalaika. So, but yeah, and we bought a pickup from the local music store, and
Huh.
he had an old tape recorder that if you switched it, you could use one of the switches as an amp. So that's how I started. Really, was with my dad made me an electric guitar.
Sounds like a guitar Bo Diddley would play, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No, I wish I
Yeah.
did. I can't remember. I think I must have swapped it for something or sold
Yeah.
it to somebody at school. But yeah,
Huh.
food. I wish I'd kept it, of course.
And then of course the big song, the other one I really love, Son of Glen,
Yeah.
which oh man, that's getting so many responses on YouTube, you know.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah.
I've not been keeping tabs on it, to be honest. But that's great that people have responded to it and like it. You know, as I say, it started off as a conversation with Louise, and so you know, and she inspired that, and a lot of the album, and a lot of the reason the album exists really is her and her
Hmm.
encouragement and the confidence that she reinstilled in me. And then with that conceptual idea, I both my kids play, so there are guitars all around the house, and both kids have been messing around with alternate tunings, which I'd never really got
Right.
into. And I picked a guitar up, and I came up with this opening arpeggiated thing, which had a kind of slightly Genesis-y flavor
Hmm.
to it, and that's how it started. It started off as this acoustic thing, and then somehow, like music does, it kind of then it just kind of ended up going into all sorts of different places and became this kind of 10-minute epic. So it's that moment where you kind of lose yourself in it, and it seems to write itself somehow. And I played a version of it that I'd done with programmed drums. I played it to Gavin Harrison, who's been, you know, my best pal since the early '80s, and he offered to play. He said, "Oh, I really like this. Can I play on it?" Which is unusual for him to say anything positive to me about that. And of course he brings it alive as well. You know, his drumming on it's amazing. And it's my son playing bass on. My son plays bass on most of the album, in fact. So.
How cool is that to have your son playing on your album?
It's really cool. It's not only cool, but he's really good. He's got a great feel, a great sound. He's very, very quick. He's got a very good ear. So yeah, it isn't nepotism. You know, it's not like it's struggling through just to get him on there. He's actually really good.
Yeah,
and really contributes and plays some lovely little lines in between the written parts. So he's great.
Yeah, I've jammed with my son many times. He's a drummer and I'm a guitar player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and now we're doing a podcast together, which is really cool. You know, I love that. But
well,
go ahead.
No, it just felt in keeping as well with the nature of the album.
Yep.
And how it's about, you know, my real dad and family, and so it seemed entirely appropriate for him to play on the record as well.
Oh, sure. It's a fantastic track, man. To me, it sounds a little bit King Crimson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, you know, I guess it's part of my DNA, I guess. It wasn't deliberate, you know, it's just where my ears and my hands go, I guess.
I want to mention some of the people that are on this album. Of course, Gavin Harrison, King Crimson, Porcupine Tree, Ian Mosley from Merlion.
Yeah.
The cellist Carolyn Lavelle.
Yeah.
Luis Patricia Crane on vocals. And of course, your son, Django, right? Django?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got some great people on this album.
Yeah, they're all exceptional in their own right, I think.
Have you thought about the next one yet, or is it too early?
No, I'm in a funny place at the minute. I'm just trying to promote this, and you know, and I'm busy doing other stuff. There's I've just finished the audio book, and I've contributed to this King Crimson studio record, which we're going to try and complete. And then there's all these additional versions of an album that I did with Robert before he reformed Crimson called Scarcity of Miracles. That's coming out in a kind of much more expanded format. There's lots and lots of things on there that you wouldn't have heard on the original record.
Oh, wow.
And tracks that didn't appear and stuff. So
that's great. I love King Crimson, man. You know, it's so cool though how they've changed the lineups all these years, and it doesn't faze them. You know, it's just more musicians. You know, they're great musicians.
Well, it was an amazing thing to be part of it, and it was an amazing thing to play this music of my childhood, and it was amazing that we covered the entire repertoire of the band. You know, we did something from every era, including new material too. So that was an amazing thing to do, and the crowds were, you know, I think it's the most popular version of the band there's ever been. We played to bigger and bigger crowds as each tour progressed. So it was amazing.
Yeah, you were there for a long time.
Yeah. I think it was the longest lasting lineup. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's got to be hard to sing some of those songs, you know, like Epitaph, Starless. Starless has got to be a tough song to sing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, because it was the music that I listened to, and it was the music that informed me and influenced me. When we did that stuff, I sang it as me and hoped that that, you know, that worked. And I think, and if it does work, I think that's why, you know, because it was the music and the singers that I listened to, you know, all those Greg and John Wetton and Boz, much underrated, I think. And so yeah, it was an amazing thing to have done.
You know, in Starless, you really got to belt it out.
Yeah, it's quite a
there's
high
certain
note.
parts.
Yeah, it's quite a high note for me singing the
That's
Stars
hard.
Spangled Banner. Yeah.
I watched a video of you. It's like you're getting ready for it, you know? Here it comes.
Like tightening my trousers, yeah.
Oh man, I do like John Wetton's version. It's one of the songs he's really well known for, I think,
Yeah, sure, of
in my
course.
opinion. Yeah. I wanted to just ask you about the Kings of Oblivion. What's up with that?
Well, that was a joke, really. It was
Really?
Gavin and myself were and are huge fans of Frank Zappa, and
Right.
a good friend of mine is an album sleeve designer. In fact, he put the current album sleeve together. But I mean, all the photographs are taken by Louise and are amazing. And he kind of put it together and the typo and everything. But in the 80s, he also had a record label, which on the whole he would license pretty obscure stuff from the 60s and put it out on this label.
Hmm.
And we came up with this idea of why don't we make an album and pretend it was recorded in the late 60s and that
Sure.
it's somehow legendary. And so yeah, it was kind of a joke, but it was the most enormous fun to do. It was the most I've ever laughed in a recording studio was making a record. It's basically Gavin and me mostly. There's some other people that contributed to it, but it's mostly Gavin and myself.
I was a big fan of the Dukes of Stratosphere.
Yeah. Well,
I can definitely dig where you're coming from.
yeah. Well, I think Andy Partridge
Yep.
has
XTC.
said,
Yep.
yeah, I think he said that Kings of Oblivion was a bit of an influence on them doing the Dukes of Stratosphere. So that's high praise. I'm a huge fan of Andy's. I think he's brilliant.
The Dukes of Stratosphere, if they played their cards right, they could have been the next Beatles.
Yeah.
They were that good, man.
Yeah, Andy's amazing, and Colin and Dave Gregory, who I know, and they're
Hmm.
incredibly talented, brilliant. I love what they do. They're amazing.
And you were Mario Fatman Vanzetti.
Yeah, well, we had to come up with some stupid names. One of my many aliases over the years.
Yeah, and Harrison was Helmo Hairdo Hudson.
Yeah, that's because he had a ridiculous haircut. I remember he got singled out for his ridiculous haircut when he was playing for Iggy Pop in a couple of reviews.
Is that right?
Yeah, because he had a mullet, and they clearly didn't want to see a mullet on stage with Iggy Pop.
It doesn't mesh well.
It offended the critical faculties of people that like.
It's funny. Jago, here's a question I ask everybody. I get some very interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, that's one of my favorite movies, to perform or collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
Oh well, I would love to collaborate with Kate Bush,
Hmm.
Peter Gabriel. I'd say Frank Zappa, but that's a tough call. And actually, when we last toured in America in 21, the Zappa band opened for us on a number of shows.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, and Gavin, because they were huge fans of Gavin, and
Yep.
one lunchtime, Gavin was chatting to them, and he said to them that he said, "Oh, Jacko and I used to do these little shows for in support and promotion about a local music shop that we frequent." And he said we used to do a couple of Zappa numbers, and they said, "Oh, which ones?" And one of them was a thing called "What's New in Baltimore," and they said, "Well, that's in our repertoire. Why don't you come up with us on stage and guest with us?" So we guested twice, and I've got to say, it was one of the highlights of the tour, playing with those guys and playing that number. It was fantastic, with Mike Keneally and Scott Tunes and Bobby Martin and and Gavin playing drums, and it was absolutely brilliant. Ray White, fantastic. So those are immediately the people I would say, possibly. Sakamoto's sadly no longer with us.
Was Jean-Luc in the band at that time or no? Jean-Luc Ponty?
No. This is just a couple of years ago. So this
okay.
They were called the Zappa band because they'd all played it with in Frank's band.
Yeah. Yeah, Frank was from Baltimore. So was I. He was
Yeah,
born and raised in Baltimore.
yeah. What's new in Baltimore?
What's
Yeah,
new in Baltimore?
yeah.
So what's go ahead. What were we gonna say?
No, I've been there because I play PRS guitars, and they're made on that little island over that mad bridge that comes out of Baltimore. It's about 4 miles, 4.5 miles long.
Annapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
So
he's been on the show.
who
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Paul Reed Smith. Yep.
yeah,
His
yeah.
he
Paul.
was promoting his band. He gave me a
Oh,
bunch of
okay.
CDs.
Yeah, he's a really good guitar player, Paul. Actually, he's very good,
His
and
band's pretty good too.
he's a lovely man. He's always been very nice to me. That's the most recent guitar that they very kindly built for me.
Very
So
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Was that a gift or you had to buy it?
No, it was a gift. They made the one with the cover of the first King Crimson album for me.
That is very cool. I did see that on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then when my previous album came out, Paul just called me one day out of the blue to talk about the album and asked me all these technical questions. And
Right.
it was a lovely, unexpected phone call. And then half an hour later, the factory phoned and said, "Paul's just told us to make you a new guitar." And I said, "Oh, okay. What shall I do?" He said, "Whatever you want." So so there you go. So I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful instrument, and it's the main instrument I played on the new record as well, and it's in the video and etc. etc.
How many guitars do you have?
Oh, far too many. I sold a few recently, but I'm hanging on. There's a wall here, so yeah. I guess if you're a guitar player, you can never have too many guitars.
Exactly. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, Jacko, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, man.
Well,
I do want to say very special thanks to Roy Avon of Royal Avenue Media for setting this up. Roy's a great guy.
he is a
Gets me a
great.
lot of interviews. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can pre-order the new album, Son of Glen. And I do have a link. It's actually I think it's on your website. Is that right?
I don't know. Yeah, if you say so. So I don't really do anything online anymore. It's all taken care of by my publisher and the record label. So
Right.
hopefully that'll. Yeah, right, yeah,
And I do want to mention your book, Who's the Boy with the Lovely Hair? The Unlikely Memoir of Jakko Jakszyk.
yeah.
And that's available on Amazon.com. You're on Facebook, Instagram, Kingmaker Publishing,
That's right. Yeah.
and you're on Bandcamp, of course.
If you say so, then I believe.
Are you gonna do any touring with this album, or what do you think?
Well, there's a possibility of it that's just come up, and I wasn't going to, but I'm definitely considering it now. So I'll keep you posted, and
Okay.
I'll let you know. I had a phone call a couple of days ago, which rather surprised me. So we will see. We will see. I hope so. I'd like to get out and play. It's been a while, making records and writing books and recording audio books is an incredibly solitary thing to do. So
Yes, it is.
yeah, I miss the act of making music with other people. So
Right.
I hope that can come off. Yeah.
So the King Crimson thing, are they still going to tour with Adrian Belew, or do you know anything about that?
What are you talking about? You're talking about Beat.
Yeah, Beat, right.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I had a brief exchange with Tony last week, but we didn't talk about that. So
Yeah.
I have no idea.
You never know with King Crimson.
Well, no, I mean, Robert had a heart attack a couple of weeks ago. So,
I didn't know that. No.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. How's he doing?
I think he's fine.
Yeah.
I've learned there's a significant difference between a cardiac arrest and a heart attack.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a cardiac arrest. He didn't really know what was going on, but he's had two stents put in,
Wow.
and he seems fine. I had a brief interaction with him, and so yeah, who knows? Who knows?
I like his videos. The ones with him and his wife. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're amusing. Jakko, thank you, man. I appreciate you being here today. Good luck with the new album. It's outstanding, and I'm going to promote the hell out of it.
That's very sweet of you to say so. Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you very
All
much.
right, man.
Thanks, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.